In the heart of San Diego, where sunshine blends seamlessly with a sense of tranquility, lies a neighborhood known as Westwood Heights. This place is not only distinguished by its luxurious homes and beautiful gardens, but is also recognized as a fence that protects the beauty and serenity of life. The world within Westwood Heights appears to be a perfect painting, a realm where affluent residents live happily together. However, within this ideal space exists a reality that few notice: the strict rules and mutual surveillance that every resident is compelled to adhere to. Leading these rules is none other than Linda Thompson, a middle-aged woman with a confident demeanor and meticulous attention to detail, respected, even somewhat feared within the community. Linda takes great pride in calling herself the guardian of the neighborhood. She is not only the enforcer of the rules, but also the one who shapes the identity of Westwood Heights. Yet, behind that resolute exterior, Linda often fails to realize that her strictness creates invisible barriers between residents and their very hearts. Linda spends most of her time strolling through the neighborhood, her keen eyes always on the lookout for any signs of rule violations. From the arrangement of gardens and the types of flowers planted to the choice of colors for houses, everything falls under her scrutiny. Even the slightest deviation can displease Linda. And when that happens, everyone quickly realizes that her mood can impact the atmosphere of the entire neighborhood. Linda is not merely the keeper of peace in Westwood Heights, she is also the facilitator of consensus among the residents. But deep down, does she ever question whether her severity might be driving people apart? The excessive focus on rules and control has created an invisible wall between her and the other residents, rendering their relationships hollow and cold. They cherish the beauty of the neighborhood, but often fail to emphasize that community solidarity is the most precious commodity of all. Life in Westwood Heights was initially very simple, with days flowing smoothly, marked by street parties and intimate gatherings in the park. Gradually, however, under Linda's strict surveillance, every welcoming activity became a symptom of the harsh regulations. Residents began to feel as though they were living in a gilded cage where freedom and individuality were forbidden. Then one day, a new resident moved in, and everything could have changed. Sarah Mitchell, a young artist brimming with dreams and vitality, chose Westwood Heights in search of a creative space for her artwork. Sarah's first day in the neighborhood was marked by a meeting event where residents had the opportunity to mingle. It was also the moment when her fate intertwined with Linda's, a fateful yet dramatic encounter. During the event, as Sarah, dressed casually and embodying a free spirit, began conversing with others, Linda's eyes darted toward her. There seemed to be something about Sarah's appearance that highlighted all the rules which Linda had particularly emphasized. Unabashed, Linda made sarcastic remarks, leaving the other residents astonished, though they merely observed in silence, resolute not to succumb. Sarah silently vowed that she would not fall into the trap of this intimidation. Although it was just her first day in Westwood Heights, it felt as if everything was poised to reach a climax. The tension between these two characters promised to lead to an inevitable conflict. Linda, believing that the beautiful nature of this place must be preserved, was ready to stand up against anyone she deemed a threat to her neighborhood. Sarah's arrival was not just a breath of fresh air. It was also a challenge to the image that Linda had cultivated for so long. At the same time, it served as a wake-up call for the community about how a single individual can influence harmony. What would become of Westwood Heights when these rules were put to the test? A new story was about to unfold amidst the contrasting shades of human character, and the journey to find connection among the houses promised to be anything but easy. Day 1 in Westwood Heights. On the first day, Sarah Mitchell set foot in Westwood Heights, a tranquil and affluent residential area. She could never have imagined that her life would be turned upside down after a fateful encounter. From afar, she had heard of the serene beauty and charm of this place, but there were also golden rules, strict standards set by the very residents who lived here. Sarah was a young artist, full of dreams and aspirations. She fell in love with this space at first sight, captivated by the elegant houses, the clean, stone-paved streets, and the lush green trees. More than anything, Sarah longed for a quiet space where she could create and express herself. Art was not just a passion. It was her way of connecting with the world around her. However, on this very first day, Sarah's hopes were quickly challenged. While attending a welcoming event for new residents at the community center, her gaze encountered a stern, authoritative woman, Linda Thompson, who called herself the guardian of Westwood Heights, seemed to be watching and critically assessing Sarah's every move with unmistakable rigor. As Sarah entered the event, gracefully clad in her simple yet stylish attire, and mingling with other residents who were dressed in expensive designer outfits, Linda could not resist the urge to make a snide remark. "She probably doesn't know that there are dress codes in this place," Linda said, her tone dripping with sarcasm. That statement struck Sarah like a quiet but painful knife, piercing deep into her soul. While the atmosphere at the event brimmed with warmth and joy from other residents, Sarah felt the weight of their gazes upon her, and the mood shifted instantly. The smiles and friendly greetings from the other residents began to fade. Her new life was suddenly enshrouded in Linda's judgment, and she realized she was about to face a psychological storm for which she was completely unprepared. A sense of confusion welled up within Sarah as she acutely felt Linda's displeasure and the subtle criticism from the other residents. With her cold gaze and haughty demeanor, Linda made the community's welcome feel less warm, even somewhat alien. Sarah, who had long been proud of and cherished herself, now faced a challenge that extended beyond merely integrating into a new community. It was about accepting herself in the eyes of others. Anxiety piled up within Sarah, but she did not allow herself to crumble. She resolved not to let Linda, or anyone else, deter her from her dreams and passion for art. This determination and resilience became a core part of Sarah's identity. However, each time she encountered Linda, from superficial conversations to disdainful glances, the feeling of inadequacy grew stronger. As the days passed, life for Sarah in Westwood Heights became increasingly tense. Linda was not just a threat to Sarah's personal lifestyle. She symbolized the barriers Sarah needed to overcome. Sarah's psyche sparkled with contradictions. She operated as an artist, yet continuously faced pressure from a hardened woman in the role of gatekeeper. On some level, Sarah sensed that Linda's gaze was not merely criticism, but also a reflection of her own self. Linda, perhaps once an artist herself, a dreamer like Sarah, had chosen to live according to the rigid rules imposed by this community. Linda was a product of expectations, prejudices, and strict control not only from the community but also from within herself. Gradually, a thought began to form in Sarah's mind. Perhaps every battle we face is not just for survival, but also for self-expression and seeking acceptance in a judgmental world. Each artwork she created contained a subtle act of defiance, reflecting not just the suffering she encountered, but the principle that no matter how many people attempt to dim your light, it entirely depends on you whether you allow that to happen. In Westwood Heights, Sarah had to not only find a way to assimilate into the community but also contend with herself. Her struggle was not only against Linda but also with the doubts within, her self-esteem issues, and the pressures imposed by her surroundings. She understood that if she wanted to fully unleash her creative potential, she had to start by accepting herself as she was. with all her differences. Although in the days that followed, Linda continued to try to control the actions of the residents. Sarah was resolute in her determination to pursue her artistic path. She began to reinterpret her view of life, not just focusing on what was happening around her, but also on what she truly wished to see in the future. She understood that Linda's mockery could not define the worth of an artist and could not extinguish the fire within her. Ultimately, those challenges made Sarah's life richer and deeper, also paving the way for her to confront those she had once hesitated to face. Where would the turning point come from? And where would this battle against judgment lead her? Only time would answer that question. As the evening sunlight began to fade, the swimming pool in Westwood Heights residential area transformed into an ideal space for those seeking tranquility and relaxation. Sarah Mitchell, dressed in a simple swimsuit and accompanied by a sketchbook, had chosen this place as her own little peaceful corner. With just a few leisurely minutes, she immersed herself in her drawings, allowing her eyes to blend with the colors of the sky and the azure water. In this gentle atmosphere, the rustling footsteps of a woman intruded upon the serenity, like a cold breeze carrying a sense of suffocation. Linda Thompson, clad in a perfect swimsuit and exuding a stern demeanor, appeared as if she were the steward of a public space, ready to determine who was right and who was wrong. "Excuse me, who are you sitting here?" Linda asked. Her tone devoid of any hint of subtlety. Her neatly groomed hair stood out against the soft hues of the pool, but her gaze was anything but warm. Sarah looked up, feeling a twinge of discomfort, but ready to confront the situation. "I'm Sarah, a new resident here," she replied confidently, failing to stifle her spirit with timidness. "Resident?" Linda raised an eyebrow. Skepticism etched on her face. "Surely you must have seen the dress code for Westwood Heights before coming here." "Code?" Sarah felt a wave of surprise wash over her. "I thought this area welcomed everyone with their own style, including artistry." "You may enjoy your freedom," Linda replied uncompromisingly, "but I just want to ensure that everything here adheres to certain standards." Her words not only reflected Linda's controlling nature, but also heightened the emotions within Sarah, making her feel as though her personal freedoms were being stripped away. Sarah could not remain silent. "I'm not here to cause trouble. I'm here to seek creativity in this quiet atmosphere. I need a space to nurture my passion for art." "I see no artistry in your outfit," Linda said coldly. "Everyone here has their own standards, and you need to respect them." The dialogue grew increasingly tense, like a guitar string stretched to the point of breaking at any moment. Yet Sarah was determined not to succumb to someone she felt was unfriendly. "Perhaps you don't know," Sarah began, her tone resolute. "Art doesn't always adhere to standards. It comes from freedom, unbound by what others expect. I don't live to meet anyone's expectations." Linda seemed to pause for a moment at Sarah's defiance. However, her strict nature appeared unwilling to concede. "You may think your way is right, but in Westwood Heights, everyone needs to adjust to the community." Sarah felt somewhat shocked. "So does that mean you want everyone to be just like you? How can we grow and create if we don't allow each other the freedom to express ourselves? I just want to feel like I am a part of this area, not an outsider." Linda remained silent, but her expression clearly displayed dissatisfaction. An uncomfortable tension hung in the air between them. Sarah thought it was difficult to please this woman, and their initial encounter had turned into an endless battle. As the initial shock faded, Sarah felt frustrated but also resolved that she could not let pressure discourage her. She returned to her sketchbook, focusing on her drawing with a heart full of emotion. After all, art was a means of expressing her feelings without seeking approval from anyone. Understanding the importance of creating personal space within a tightly knit community like Westwood Heights, Sarah vowed that she would not allow Linda's dominance to make her abandon her passion. This encounter was a defining moment for both a struggle for one to find her place in the community and the other intent on upholding the rules she cherished. But the ending closed the door that Sarah had once opened, and with each stroke of her pencil, she reminded herself that she deserved to be loved and accepted as she truly was. No amount of control could dim her light, and one would never know what an artist might create when given the freedom to do so. The resilience in Sarah's heart, filled with passion, would drive her through this challenge. Gradually, she understood that the confrontation between the free-spirited artist and the guardian of rules was just the beginning of a larger journey in both her career and her life at Westwood Heights. Linda Thompson always had a sharp eye for the rules of Westwood Heights, and that day, at the pool, she may have crossed the line of ordinary control, sitting back under the sun. Sarah Mitchell felt as if she had stepped into a dreamy space where laughter and the clarity of the water fused to create a vibrant atmosphere. She did not anticipate that one of the residents of this neighborhood could cause that atmosphere to shift dramatically. "Excuse me, are you a resident here?" Linda's voice cut through the air, as cold as the autumn breeze. Her golden hair shone brightly in the sunlight, but her eyes glinted with scrutiny. Startled, Sarah felt a rush of confusion facing a woman whose powerful appearance and disdainful gaze were intimidating. "Yes, I just moved here," she replied, trying to maintain a tone of confidence. "Really? It seems I haven't seen your name on the resident list." Linda seized the opportunity, continuing her probing, her gaze akin to that of a warrior on a battlefield. Feeling threatened by Linda's relentless presence, Sarah fought to remain calm. "I registered. My name might not have been updated yet. I've only just arrived a few days ago. This area has clear residency regulations." Linda responded coldly, "I won't hesitate to check if necessary. We don't need anyone unsuitable disrupting the peace of Westwood Heights." Sarah sensed hostility and an overwhelming pressure. Her explanations felt drowned by Linda's words like a storm sweeping away the remnants of tranquility. She couldn't help but feel as though she was being excluded from a closed world, where power and prestige acted as shields of protection. "You know, an artist like you would fit better in a more open place, where rules aren't so rigid," Linda said, bitterness evident in her voice. For just a moment, Sarah could see the jealousy in Linda's words, a sense of deprivation buried beneath a pile of rules and regulations. "I just want to find a place to live and create," Sarah said, seemingly longing to be understood, to be empathized with. She felt the harshness of such encounters. Was this to be the model for life at Westwood Heights, where beauty is always under strict surveillance and control? Linda refused to relent, continuing her onslaught. "That creative space isn't here. Not when your presence could threaten the integrity of the community." After a moment of silence, the scene by the pool felt suffocating. Bystanders began to take notice of the confrontation between the two women, and Sarah felt a wave of embarrassment rising within her. She was faced with a choice: either become a part of Westwood Heights or endure endless battles with a woman who knew nothing of art and freedom. "Do the rules and regulations you, Linda, uphold prevent people from shining as their true selves?" Sarah asked, her tone now filled with determination rather than weakness. "This community has its reasons for existing as it does." Linda waved her hand dismissively. As if undisturbed by the question, Sarah took a deep breath. "Perhaps. But I believe that unity and diversity is what truly empowers this place. Not everyone needs to be alike or develop in the same way. Linda's wave of ire and feelings of being threatened were palpable. She could not accept a differing viewpoint, especially from someone who didn't fit her mold. You may speak eloquently, but no one is allowed to harm this community. Least of all you. Sarah felt as though everything was at a standstill. She didn't want to continue the argument. All she wanted was to live, create, and contribute to Westwood Heights, something she believed would make it a better place. But now, Linda's control acted as a shield, blocking all her opportunities. For a moment, Sarah realized that this tension was not merely a personal conflict, but a sign that the community was divided under stringent regulations. In a brief moment of silence, she wanted to believe that instead of opposing one another, they could find a way to coexist harmoniously. But Linda had no intention of compromising. She decided that outside intervention was necessary. "If you're not in compliance, I will have to call the police," Linda said, her tone leaving no room for doubt. This time, Sarah felt as if she were being pushed into a quagmire. The police? How could it come to this? She never imagined that merely by not conforming to the standards Linda imposed, she would become a target for this controlling process. A big question arose in Sarah's mind. Is it truly fair for people like Linda to strip others of their freedom with just a word? She wondered what would happen when the police arrived. Would they understand her inner turmoil, or just see another young woman who didn't fit their standards? This was a turning point in Sarah's life at Westwood Heights, a place where one person's view governed all. Could she stand firm and find her own light amidst the darkness cast by Linda? Because no matter how dark everything became, Sarah believed that the truth had been sown, and one day, light would break through again. When the emergency meeting of the Homeowners Association HOA took place at Westwood Heights, the atmosphere grew tense. The residents were not only concerned about maintaining the beauty of their community, but were also faced with a larger question. How can they live in a way that everyone feels respected and accepted? Linda Thompson, who proudly referred to herself as the guardian of the neighborhood, sat in a dark corner of the meeting room, her shy yet proud gaze fixed forward. The criticism from other residents only reinforced her belief that enforcing the strict rules she upheld was the right thing to do. But the reality was different. Her control had to some extent discouraged and alienated those around her. As the meeting progressed, Jessica, a resident who had lived in Westwood Heights for over a decade, stood up with a firm voice. "We cannot let the tight management of one individual undermine the sense of community we have here. I have lived long enough to see that each of us has our own style and way of life. We should not view that as a threat, but as a part of the diversity we should be proud of." Jessica's words resonated with many other residents, who began nodding in agreement. Their eyes filled with hope for a change in the community they cherished. Next was Sam, a middle-aged man who had long been an active member in neighborhood activities. He stood up and spoke powerfully. Excessive oversight does not only create distance, but makes us feel like we are living in a prison. We must remember that the goal is to create a safe space that is also filled with love and understanding. These comments acted as a catalyst, stirring many emotions among the residents present. They began to share personal stories of their painful experiences being watched by Linda, with some even having adjusted their own behavior just to avoid unnecessary criticism. Once, I organized a birthday party for my daughter. I was so excited. But when Linda showed up and blamed me for the noise being too loud, I felt hurt. A resident named Marie confessed, her voice tinged with sadness. It wasn't just the laughter of children. It was joy and memories among families. The heartfelt sharing from the residents only made Linda feel more suffocated. Her image as a strong and tough woman suddenly felt fragile in her mind. She could not deny that her actions had made others feel stifled, and loneliness began to ignite doubts within her. Meanwhile, Sarah sat in the middle of the rows, witnessing all the changes. She did not question whether Linda could recognize her mistakes. Rather, she yearned for a meeting where they could understand each other. After all, they all lived in Westwood Heights, a place meant for dreams and hopes. As the meeting drew to a close, a sense of unity became evident. The residents no longer criticized. They shifted their focus to action. They began discussing ways to create a better community where everyone would feel respected and accepted. We should not let one individual steer us. Instead, let's decide together the path we want to take, Jessica remarked, as gentle looks turned toward Linda. Our differences are our strength. Finally, Linda could remain silent no longer. She stood up, her voice weak but resolute. I apologize to all of you. I tried to uphold the values I deemed important, but perhaps I forgot that what matters most is the people. I want to change, and I need your help. Everyone listened. No one interrupted or criticized, but only embraced the sincerity from a woman who had once been the guardian. The bittersweet feeling mingled with forgiveness in the air, seeming to bring a glimmer of hope to the community, where all could live closer and love one another more. The meeting concluded with a warm atmosphere, but the change did not stop there. Afterwards, they collectively built concrete plans to move forward, to make Westwood Heights a place where everyone felt free, happy, and above all, part of an inseparable family. In the days following the meeting, the image of a new Westwood Heights gradually emerged, where Sarah took on a leading role, igniting connecting activities. The bond among individuals was no longer just a longing, but had turned into reality, encouraging Linda and Sarah, along with all the residents there, to move toward a bright future. Linda Thompson had lived in Westwood Heights for a long time, and for her, the strict rules were not just regulations but integral to the identity of the community. However, the incident that caused tension with Sarah Mitchell revealed cracks in how she executed her guardian role. Faced with criticism from the community, Linda realized that maintaining what she considered order and strength in the community might have been at odds with what people truly desired. The emergency meeting of the Homeowners Association HOA took place in a tense and anxious atmosphere. Residents gathered in the community hall, their expressions reflecting irritation and disappointment. The murmurs and questions about why Linda called the police instead of listening to Sarah created intense pressure. Linda could not deny the suffocating feeling that overwhelmed her. The stress came not only from the residents around her but also from her own internal emotions. As the meeting began, each resident stood up in turn to voice their thoughts, and every word felt like a gentle blade cutting into Linda's heart. Their daily stories of discrimination, loneliness, and the pressure of living under the shadow of a strict figure like her weighed heavily on her. A middle-aged woman shared her feelings of not being able to express herself freely for fear of criticism. A man recounted how he ended a relationship with a neighbor because of Linda's judgment regarding their lack of conformity to community standards. Those stories struck at Linda's heart, making her realize that her approach had indeed created a stifling atmosphere filled with discrimination. After the meeting concluded, Linda left with a heavy heart. She felt as if she had built a wall around herself, and that wall did nothing to help the community but only further isolated everyone. A part of her wondered whether she was truly the protector she believed herself to be, or simply someone who instilled fear in those around her. As time passed, the criticism from the community showed no signs of fading. Linda observed that she felt isolated, and the relationship she once took pride in had grown cold. She began to feel lonely, a sensation she had never faced before, in the long nights, when everything around her grew quiet. Linda spent time reflecting on her mistakes. She came to realize that what she considered protection had actually created a barrier between herself and others. Ultimately, Linda understood that to truly be the guardian of Westwood Heights, she needed to change. She decided to participate in the activities organized by Sarah, not only to demonstrate inclusivity, but also to rediscover herself. Linda began to explore new ideas and posed questions about how the community could bond without the need to standardize everything. She attended BBQ parties, art discussion sessions, and activities that genuinely fostered creativity and interaction. Linda wanted to convey that she was not just the enforcer of rules, but also a part of this community, a community made up of diverse individuals, each with their own stories, interests, and aspirations. The change in Linda's approach began to create positive signals from the residents. They gradually recognized that Linda was no longer a figure of threat and criticism, but a woman willing to learn and listen. The peaceful feedback from the community motivated Linda, making her feel loved and appreciated. Linda understood that rebuilding trust is not an easy task, but step by step, she initiated ideas to encourage solidarity, understanding, and tolerance in Westwood Heights. She clearly saw that diversity was the strength this community needed. And from that, a new relationship began to form between her and the community. Now, Linda knows that collaboration and sharing are the core elements that help the community grow stronger. She no longer imposes rules on her own, but rather encourages the participation of everyone. And by letting go of her biases, Linda not only changed herself, but also opened a new path for all residents of Westwood Heights. Sarah felt the power of connection and affection among the people in the Westwood Heights community. Through the events she organized, the art displays, live music, and BBQ parties not only brought a joyful atmosphere, but also sparked conversations and sharing among the residents. The gatherings began with simple things like sandwiches, salads, and drinks. Sarah paid attention to every little detail, from the tables adorned with fresh flowers to the light music that created a comfortable and approachable ambiance. She believed this was the best way for people to relax, set aside their daily pressures, and, most importantly, to see each other as human beings rather than just residents with different names. On a beautiful sunny afternoon, Sarah decided to host a BBQ party at the small park in the heart of the neighborhood. She sent invitations to all the residents, regardless of age or social status. To foster a sense of intimacy, she handcrafted the invitations herself, carrying the message, "Let's come together. Let's understand each other." Even the notoriously difficult resident, Linda, was someone Sarah hoped would join, as she believed that one kind gesture could break down barriers and resistance. On the day of the event, the park came alive like never before. Laughter echoed, and the aroma of grilled meat wafted through the air. Residents began to gather around the dining table, exchanging stories, sharing personal interests, and discussing the intriguing aspects of their daily lives. The atmosphere gradually became friendlier, and the initially stern expressions softened into beaming smiles. Not long after the event, Linda decided to join in. Although she had not forgotten the troubles she had caused Sarah earlier, it seemed that amid this joyful setting, those feelings began to fade. She stood on the sidelines, observing everyone with a mix of skepticism and hope. When a group of residents invited her to join, Linda reluctantly nodded and approached them. "Can we have a little spice?" a neighbor asked, holding a jar of homemade chili jam. The smile that initiated the conversation began to dissolve the walls Linda had built. She hadn't realized how such simple pleasures could foster deep connections between people. Sarah approached, noticing Linda's hesitance. "Hi there. It's wonderful to see you here." "Don't hesitate, everyone has been looking forward to meeting you." She opened her heart, creating an opportunity for Linda to express herself in this space. Sarah knew that everyone had a story, and Linda was no exception. The party unfolded beautifully with humorous stories, profound shares, and laughter ringing out. Linda gradually opened up, participating in games and amusing anecdotes, and she began to feel the joy of seeing people come together. As sunset approached, guests gathered around a large table. Feeling the soft rays fade, Sarah stood up and said, "Today is a fantastic day. Each of us can make Westwood Heights a truly special place, not just through strict rules, but by love and mutual acceptance." Applause erupted, and the warm, friendly atmosphere eased the anxieties Linda had once harbored. It was not only a connection between her and the other residents, but also a significant step towards a united and vibrant community. Over time, these social events became a tradition in Westwood Heights. Sarah harnessed her creativity to organize art events, inviting local artists to showcase their works, thereby igniting a passion for art among the residents. Gradually, the residents began to redefine their values. They were no longer isolated individuals living in beautiful homes. They became a community, a large family where everyone shared joys, sorrows, and dreams. Westwood Heights truly began to transform. As the barriers between Linda and the community were gradually dismantled, a cherished relationship between Linda and the residents emerged. They could now see each other not just through rules and oversight, but through stories, laughter, and shared tears like a whirlwind. Sarah ignited the flame of connection among all. She brought not only art, but also strength, hope, and love to the entire community. The efforts she put forth became a shining example for all the residents of Westwood Heights, demonstrating that acceptance and love can transcend all barriers. In the days following her loss of power, Linda Thompson felt a heavy weight on her heart. The sense of relief she once felt while enforcing the rules had now turned numb, like a coat that was too tight, constricting and suffocating. In Westwood Heights, where she had once taken pride in being a guardian of tradition and the beauty of the community, she now felt adrift in a tide of gloomy thoughts. She stood by the window, looking outside at children laughing, families chatting joyfully, while inside her heart resided only a familiar loneliness. The weekends she once spent supervising and fine-tuning every little detail now passed in silence. Linda was no longer the center of conversations or the one shaping the rules. Instead, she had become a ghost in the neighborhood, forgotten and no longer respected. The sidelong glances and whispered conversations just out of earshot made her feel like an outsider, a spectator standing on the sidelines of a performance in which she had once participated with enthusiasm. A feeling of guilt churned within her, and Linda felt trapped in her own snare. Had she truly been right to refuse difference? Was it really necessary to uphold the rules mechanically and coldly, regardless of others' feelings? These questions looped through her mind like waves crashing against the shore, causing her heart to ache. The urge to seek forgiveness grew more intense. Linda realized that it wasn't just Sarah, but many other residents who felt wounded by the injustice and pressure she had created. What she had thought was protecting the community now revealed itself to be the division she had caused. Looking at the artwork that Sarah had created with love and passion, Linda felt a rising tide of regret. She wished she could turn back time and be more open to those she had regarded as rule breakers. Linda decided she had to take action, unable to simply sit still in sadness. She knew she had to reach out to Sarah. This thought brought her a glimmer of hope and motivation, though she understood that this would surely be difficult. Linda felt compelled to face her mistakes. She needed to express and demonstrate her remorse as sincerely as possible. One day, Linda set aside her fears and bravely stepped outside her home, heading towards Sarah's apartment. The door before her seemed like a barrier, but inside lay an opportunity for reconciliation. Linda knocked, her heart pounding in her chest. After a few seconds of anxious anticipation, the door opened. Sarah stood there, her expression not entirely welcoming, somewhat surprised to see Linda. "Hello? Sarah?" Linda began, her voice slightly trembling yet resolute. I want to apologize." Sarah looked at Linda, her face hesitant. She recognized Linda, but it wasn't easy to forget what had happened. However, there was something in Linda's tone that made Sarah listen. Linda and Sarah walked into a quiet space within the small apartment, where soft light mingled with Sarah's vibrant artwork. "I know I have hurt you," Linda continued, not shying away from Sarah's gaze. "I was too rigid and didn't pay attention to the feelings of those around me. Not just you, but many other residents have felt stifled by the rules I have imposed." Sarah listened, not rushing to respond. She sensed sincerity in Linda's words, something she hadn't expected. Linda went on, "I thought I was doing the right thing, but now I realize that my control only made people feel dissatisfied and alone." "Linda?" Sarah gently interjected, interrupting Linda's stream of thoughts. "For me, the important thing is that you have the ability to recognize your mistakes. Everyone can make mistakes, and you're no exception. What I need is sincerity." Linda nodded, a part of her still anxious. "I truly want to mend the wounds I have caused. I think that maybe we can find a way to integrate and become a real community." The mood in the room gradually shifted. Sarah's paintings showcasing the strength of art, the power to connect people. Linda felt Sarah's gaze soften. The conversation between them began to open new doors for understanding. Finally, Sarah smiled gently. "I too felt sad, thinking that someone like you could stifle creativity and freedom. But if you genuinely want to change, I think we should experiment together with some new ideas." In that moment, Linda felt as though a light had flickered on. She not only found forgiveness from Sarah, but also discovered an opportunity to recreate herself within the community. Pleased with the path ahead, their relationship slowly began to melt away the walls that had hardened. Linda left Sarah's apartment with a sense of relief like never before. Her heart was filled with hope, not just for herself, but for the entire community. She understood that it wouldn't be easy to change what had happened, but the first step had been taken, and that was what mattered most. Linda stood in front of the mirror, a stray silver hair falling across her forehead, and she felt the heaviness of sorrow in her heart growing ever more burdensome. Her days living within Westwood Heights had changed, not just in the surrounding scenery, but also in the way she perceived herself. What was once seen as a protector had now turned into a burden, and the pressure she placed upon herself had distanced her from those around her. When she heard the news that Sarah was organizing a small gathering for the community, Linda's heart tightened. She knew she had hurt that young woman. Nonetheless, a voice in her head kept repeating, "Should I go? Will they accept me?" After a prolonged hesitation, ultimately, the longing for peace and the chance to make amends compelled Linda to decide to attend. The gathering took place in a small park within the neighborhood. The cheerful atmosphere and warm laughter attracted many residents. Linda stood in a corner, watching. She saw Sarah playing with the children, her face glowing. But just looking into Sarah's eyes, Linda sensed the distance and sadness residing within them. "Where should I begin?" she told herself. When Sarah invited everyone to sit down, Linda knew the moment had come. She stepped out of the shadows and approached Sarah. Her heart raced in her chest. Yet Linda remained resolute. "Hello, Sarah. May I speak with you for a moment?" Sarah looked up, her expression a mix of surprise yet devoid of rejection. "Of course, Linda," she responded, still wearing a smile but with her eyes reflecting deep contemplation. Linda took a deep breath, trying to organize her thoughts. I want to apologize to you. I know I've hurt you. My actions were terribly wrong. My love for Westwood Heights caused me to forget the empathy necessary for those around me." She paused, searching for Sarah's gaze once more to gauge her reaction. Do you really feel that way?" Sarah asked, her tone gentle yet tinged with doubt. Linda nodded. "Yes, I allowed fear and control to overshadow love and understanding. I was wrong to think I had the right to judge others simply because they were different from me." Linda's face flushed crimson, the feeling of shame welling up inside her. "I deserve to be criticized. I must learn to listen, to respect what I do not understand." Sarah remained silent for a moment, seemingly digesting each of Linda's words. Linda felt a gentle breeze pass by, easing the tension in the air. Finally, Sarah spoke. "Linda, I understand that this is a process. We all make mistakes. The most important thing is that we can recognize them and be willing to change." Linda sensed a flicker of hope ignite within her. "Do you really think you can forgive me?" she asked, her voice tinged with anxiety. Sarah shrugged. "Forgiveness isn't easy, but I believe everyone deserves a second chance. Ultimately, I don't want Westwood Heights to be merely a community with strict rules. I want it to be a place where everyone feels loved and accepted, regardless of differences." Time seemed to freeze as they gazed into each other's eyes, sensing a connection gradually forming. This was not just about an apology, it was a moment of understanding. Linda thought of what Sarah had brought to the community, a space for creativity, where people could connect without fear. "Thank you, Sarah," Linda said, "for what you have done and what you will do. I want to learn from you, to work together to build a better community." She hesitated for a moment before adding, "It will be challenging, but if you give me the chance, I promise to try." Sarah smiled gently and nodded. "I will always be here if you need. Let's work together to build a Westwood Heights that we both love." Linda felt as if an invisible weight had been lifted, and as they turned back to the event together, the glances from other residents followed them not with judgment, but with hope. In that moment, Linda and Sarah were not merely two women from two different worlds. They had become symbols of change, tolerance, and the power of forgiveness. Westwood Heights needed more than mere protection of its external beauty. It required strong connections among those who lived within it, and from that point onward, change began both in actions and from the heart. Linda stood in front of the mirror, admiring her reflection. Over time, wrinkles had begun to appear around her eyes and on her skin. She was no longer the powerful and confident woman she once was. After the incident at the pool, a skeptical look from the residents forced her to confront the truth about herself, while she had always believed she was protecting the community. In reality, she had been building a solid wall between herself and those around her. But after all, Linda decided that she would not give up. That evening, she wrote a letter to Sarah. In the letter, she sincerely apologized for allowing her arrogance and domineering nature to push people away. She expressed her desire to start anew, step by step, and if possible, she hoped to receive a chance to atone. This road will be long and difficult, Linda thought, but it is worth trying. As she participated in the first event organized by Sarah, she felt nervous. This was Linda's first appearance back in the community she had once rigidly managed, wearing a simple outfit, neither too ornate nor too casual. Linda walked into a space filled with laughter and a festive atmosphere. The aromas of familiar foods wafted through the air. She could hear music coming from a small band and saw people dancing and laughing joyfully. Linda slowly made her way to the outdoor kitchen, where Sarah was serving burgers. She couldn't help but feel anxious as she intended to approach. Linda suddenly met the eyes of some residents she had once criticized. A storm of guilt washed over her. "Hi, Linda." Sarah greeted her with a bright smile. "I'm so glad you could make it." "Thank you." "Sarah, I'm very happy to be here too," Linda replied, her voice quivering slightly. She had not expected Sarah's genuine words to dissipate the tense atmosphere that had lingered for so long. As the party continued, Linda engaged in games, discussing art and life with others. Each conversation served as a mirror reflecting different aspects of life that she had never acknowledged before. She had once regarded art as a trivial hobby, but now she felt its magic in connecting everyone together. In those joyful moments, Linda realized that not only did she need to change, but the other residents also needed to be more open to differences. She decided to find ways to promote unity in the community, helping everyone understand that overcoming boundaries and prejudices would create a rich and colorful living environment. As the days passed, the neighborhood became closer and friendlier. Linda began to discuss ideas with Sarah, from organizing art exhibitions to implementing charity events. They talked about building a community garden where people from all walks of life could participate in caring for and connecting with nature. That would be an ideal place for everyone to come together, Sarah said excitedly. "I believe that when we do something together, differences will no longer be a barrier." Linda nodded in agreement. With each meeting and activity, she found herself gradually attracting positive attention from the residents. They began to listen to her. And although the past was not perfect, the feeling of being forgiven and accepted motivated Linda to stand up and keep trying. Many residents started to engage with the activities organized by Sarah, from art classes for children to outdoor movie screenings. Gradually, both new and familiar faces in the community began to connect with one another. They exchanged ideas and seized the opportunity to develop Westwood Heights in a new direction, a place where everyone could come together to build and grow. Linda set a challenge for herself to overcome the fear of facing those she had once hurt. In the past, she had always tried to maintain her position and power by controlling everything. Now, she understood that true leadership lies not only in power, but also in empathy and the ability to connect with the community. Each time she encountered inquiring looks or skepticism from the residents, she reminded herself of this journey, a journey of learning, growing, and accepting oneself. Linda was no longer a rigid woman. She was discovering a new way of leadership, no longer just a guardian, but becoming a connector. Eventually, the community did not just change. Even Linda's perspective had shifted. She began to see the light from the good that unity could bring. The past conflicts seemed to have been resolved, and in the hearts of every resident, including Linda, was a hope for promising new days. They were not just living together, they were beginning to live for one another. The growth of the Westwood Heights community is not only the result of institutional changes or regulations, but also stems from hearts that have opened to embrace one another. As time passes, the memories of the awkward confrontations between Sarah and Linda gradually become valuable lessons for everyone. Differences, rather than acting as barriers, have become a source of growth and a bridge for positive change. When Linda began to participate in events organized by Sarah, she sought not only to reintegrate but also to prove that people can change. The eyes of the neighborhood residents, which rejected disdainful glances, helped Linda realize that change cannot come solely from words, but must be accompanied by genuine actions. One summer afternoon, as neighbors gathered for the first BBQ organized by Sarah, Linda felt the joyful, welcoming atmosphere that she had rejected for so long. Throughout that evening, the hugs, laughter, and shared stories painted a vibrant picture of a community that Linda had previously only viewed through the lens of control and rules. She suddenly recognized that the simplest pleasures in life, like grilling meat together, enjoying fresh fruits, or chatting side by side, brought about the strongest connections. These moments illustrated that determination and affection could dissolve the boundaries created by prejudice. After attending several events with Sarah, Linda began to see the power of openness and compassion. She not only listened to the wishes of the residents, but also took the initiative to learn about them. Simple questions such as, "What are your hobbies?" or "Do you have a dream in life?" became bridges between her and the other residents. Through these questions, Linda became aware of others' emotions and integrated into a community that she had once shunned. Sarah, with her patience and open heart, consistently encouraged Linda to engage in the artistic activities she had initiated. Gradually, the paintings Linda created in the art workshops began to reflect not only her individuality but also the stories of the community. The vibrant colors and images that showcased cultural diversity and different lifestyles enriched the living space of Westwood Heights. With each piece of art, both Linda and the community gradually discovered the richness of life experiences, learned from one another, and realized that no one is perfect, yet everyone deserves love and acceptance. The spirit of solidarity began to spread from these activities, and Linda became an integral part of the artistic creations. No longer were they merely participants. Everyone became an inspiration to each other. They learned to face differences and turn them into opportunities for growth. Many residents began to express their wishes for organizing more events to foster connections and create memorable experiences. Linda and Sarah became central figures in this transformation, linking not just individuals but also connecting an entire community. Events such as cultural festivals, art exhibitions, and cultural exchange programs not only fostered a sense of belonging among the people, but also created opportunities for everyone to express their passions and talents. This not only enriched their spiritual lives but also built a stronger sense of community. As time passed, people came and went, but the relationships among Linda, Sarah, and other residents became a symbol of unity. Meetings, sharing ideas, and actively participating in community activities reduced the barriers between individuals. Each person realized that their differences were not something to hide, but a source of pride, as they contributed to the richness and diversity of the community. Linda was no longer the stern protector she once was. She became a strong advocate for change. She observed these activities with enthusiasm, conveying confidence and passion to each resident. Under the sunlight, in the bonds of the community, the growth of the community blossomed, bringing hope and simply happiness to all. By overcoming differences and binding together, Westwood Heights became a true village, where each person's story was heard and cherished. Linda and Sarah not only affirmed and developed their relationship, but also ignited a flame of change in the hearts of each resident, encouraging them to participate and contribute to the hopeful future of the community. This story is not merely a transformation from conflict to peace, but a journey of self-discovery, understanding, and embracing differences, ultimately making each individual and the community stronger. When boundaries are erased, kindness and connectivity thrive. Westwood Heights becomes a model for many other places, a warm, loving space ready to welcome everyone, no matter where they come from or who they are. Linda and Sarah have navigated through difficulties and conflicts together, And now, they stand side by side in the gentle sunlight. At the heart of Westwood Heights, the walls of difference have been broken down, enveloping the neighborhood in a sense of peace and harmony. They not only represent two distinct personalities but also symbolize the growth and progress of a diverse community. Linda, who once was haunted by the need to maintain the perfection of Westwood Heights, has now realized that true perfection does not solely reside in rules or outward appearances. She understands that the real beauty of a community lies in the strong relationships among its inhabitants, in empathy, and in the ability to accept differences. The lessons learned from her mistakes have reinforced her resolve, helping her to open her heart more and participate in community activities with a fresh perspective. Sarah, with her passionate heart for art, has demonstrated that creativity and uniqueness should not only be encouraged but also serve as a positive energy source for the community. She organizes events, from BBQ parties to art exhibitions, not just to connect the residents but also to spark a spirit of solidarity and compassion. People of all ages, from the elderly to the youth, find themselves in these activities, collectively creating memorable moments. The journey of Linda and Sarah does not merely stop at resolving personal conflicts. It has also inspired all residents of Westwood Heights. They have learned that differences are not barriers, but rather bridges that bring people closer together, living alongside one another, sharing stories, and enjoying small joys have become the foundation of a strong community. As the residents of Westwood Heights reflect on their journey so far, they do not merely recall past arguments or tensions. Instead, they recognize their personal growth. They have learned the value of understanding and patience, and from that, their perspectives of each other have become more open. People sense each other's differences, from their ways of dressing to their thoughts. Yet, it is these very differences that create the charm and richness of the community. Linda and Sarah have helped the entire neighborhood realize that the strength of a community lies not just in adherence to rules, but also in generosity and the spirit of sharing. They have promoted a new outlook, where each resident can be their true self without fear of judgment. This has created a safe environment where everyone can grow and develop. Ultimately, the story of Westwood Heights and these two strong women reminds us that in a diverse society, mutual acceptance is the key to harmony. Each passing day, they cultivate the core values of humanity, respect, and tolerance. The invaluable lessons learned from their missteps and conflicts have made them stronger, transcending all boundaries. The image of Linda and Sarah, hand in hand, is no longer merely a confrontation of two worlds, but has become a symbol of unity, compassion, and an unexpected friendship. From their differences, they have built a community where everything can thrive, a place where everyone is respected and can contribute to one another. This story is not only about Linda and Sarah, but also about every resident of Westwood Heights. It serves as a symbol of progress and acceptance that each individual can bring to the community. That is the message we need to remember. Each person is an essential piece in the multifaceted picture of society. Let us come together to build a world where love and understanding guide us,